I remember the first time I heard the warning. I was just a captain back then. Captain John Mercer of the ISS Retribution, stationed at one of the outer colonies near the Orion Rift. It came through a fractured broadcast, some alien voice, desperate, trembling, half garbled by static. Do not attack the humans. You will never escape their wrath. Most of us thought it was a trick or a bluff. Some xenospecies trying to mess with comms traffic. The higher-ups ignored it. We laughed it off in the mess hall, but that was before the war started, before everything changed. The first strike came at Epsilon Eridani 3. No declaration, no formal notice. Just fire raining down from the sky, orbital bombardment that wiped out 2 million colonists in a matter of hours. The attackers called themselves the Cavor Dominion. Some ancient empire from deep space, arrogant as hell, thinking humans were just another primitive species to subjugate. They made one mistake. They left survivors. I got the call 2 days later. Fleet Command ordered us to regroup at Arcturus Station. Full retaliatory action authorized, they said. No more politics, no more diplomacy, just war. On the way there, I sat alone in my quarters, replaying that old warning over and over. Do not attack the humans. The voice had sounded almost terrified. When we reached Arcturus, I saw what was waiting. The largest human fleet ever assembled. Battlecruisers, carriers, stealth frigates, experimental weapon platforms, all lined up like a wall of steel, and the faces of the men and women on those ships, grim, cold. No one talked about surrender. No one talked about mercy. We were going to burn the Dominion to the ground. I was promoted to Fleet Commodore before the first wave launched. The brass said they needed aggressive commanders with a taste for blood. I guess I fit the bill. We hit their outer colonies first. Vacus Prime, Torm 7, Galveth's Reach. No warnings, no quarter. For every human they had slaughtered on Epsilon Eridani, we returned the favor tenfold. I ordered orbital strikes with kinetic rods that turned entire cities to glass. When their fleets tried to engage us, we tore through them like paper. Human engineering had outpaced theirs in ways they didn't understand. They'd brought plasma cannons and shielding tech that looked impressive on paper, but we had railguns that fired rounds at 18 kilometers per second, point defense grids that shredded their missile swarms, AI-guided torpedoes that hunted ships like wolves. And worst of all, we fought like demons. Humans don't break easily. They don't surrender when their backs are to the wall, and when they taste blood, they become something else entirely. That was when we started picking up more of those garbled warnings, alien distress signals on every frequency. You could hear the fear in their voices now. Do not attack the humans. They do not stop. They do not forgive. One intercepted message even showed a Cavor warlord screaming at his subordinates, demanding to know why his fleets kept vanishing. He didn't understand. None of them did. They thought this would be a short, glorious campaign. Take a few human worlds, force a treaty, add us to their empire. But they had poked the wrong nest. Now they were learning. And the deeper we pushed into Dominion space, the more desperate their warnings became. Stay away from them. Do not engage. Flee if you must. There is no honor in dying to these monsters. By the time we reached Cavor Prime, their homeworld, the Dominion fleet was in shambles. Their leaders sent out envoys begging for peace. But it was too late. The war had consumed us. I had seen too many dead colonists, too many children burned alive under alien fire. We weren't here for peace. We were here for vengeance. I stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching as our fleet formed up for the final assault. My hands clenched behind my back. My face was a stone mask. The men around me, veterans, killers now, watched me with hard eyes. "Sir," my XO said, "incoming message from the Cavor High Command." I nodded. "Put it through." The alien voice crackled over the speakers. Broken. Defeated. We surrender, please. Stop. We did not know. We did not believe the warnings. I leaned toward the mic, voice cold as ice. You should have. Then I gave the order. All batteries. Fire! And as the first barrage lit up the void, somewhere in the back of my mind, I heard that old voice again. Do not attack the humans. You will never escape their wrath. The first volleys tore into Cavor Prime's orbital defenses like a blade through flesh. I watched from the Retribution's bridge as the planet's defense grid flickered and died, bursts of plasma and kinetic fire dancing across the void. Their so-called shield network collapsed under sustained fire in less than 5 minutes. Pathetic. We had fought worse in the asteroid belts. Targets acquired, Commodore, my gunnery officer reported. Primary installations marked for saturation strike. I didn't hesitate. Begin. One by one, the fleet's cruisers and destroyers unleashed hell. Streams of tungsten slugs rained down on the surface, targeting military command centers, orbital elevators, shipyards. Anything that could give the Dominion a fighting chance. The planet's surface erupted in firestorms visible even from our position in orbit. Enemy fleet attempting breakout from Sector 6, my XO said. His voice was clipped, professional. 2 carriers, 6 frigates, 7 interceptors, minimal escort. They're running, I said flatly. Orders? Intercept, no survivors. The battle group peeled off without delay. Captain Reeves of the Iron Fist led the charge, his ship's railguns firing at extreme range. The first Cavor carrier exploded before it could clear low orbit, its escort frigates scrambling in disarray. Cowards! I turned back to the tactical display. The Cavor government had gone silent after our initial bombardment. No more surrender messages. No more begging. They had either fled or were dead. Either outcome suited me. I knew what my men were thinking. This is justice. They weren't wrong. A year ago, the Dominion's forces had glassed an entire human colony. 2 million lives gone in a day. Families, children. No warnings. No mercy. Now they were learning that humans didn't forgive. Ever. The bridge was quiet, save for the hum of equipment and the occasional murmur of reports. I walked the length of the command deck, watching my crew. They were focused, efficient, deadly. I could see the hard edge in their eyes. Veterans of this brutal campaign. No one questioned the mission. No one doubted what we were doing. And why should they? We weren't the ones who started this war, but we would damn well finish it. Commodore, my communications officer called, frowning. Picking up another broadcast? Strange frequency? Source. Unknown. Could be deep space relay. It's weak, fragmented. I nodded. Boost it. Let's hear it. The speakers crackled. Then a voice came through. Another alien transmission, choppy and distorted but unmistakably panicked. To all remaining forces, do not engage the humans. Withdraw immediately. They do not stop. They do not forgive. It wasn't from the Cavor. The language was different. Origin? I asked. Not Dominion space, sir. This is coming from beyond their borders, possibly from the Threxian Confederacy. That caught my attention. The Threxians were no friends of humanity, but they weren't fools either. If even they were broadcasting warnings, the message was spreading. Good. Let the whole galaxy tremble. I tapped a control panel and brought up the latest intel reports. Already, other alien powers were reacting. Fleets pulling back, trade convoys rerouting, neutral zones expanding. The humans weren't just fighting a war anymore. We were becoming a force to be feared. I stared at the growing list of intercepted messages, warnings, desperate pleas, terrified voices. Do not attack the humans. You will never escape their wrath. They destroyed the Dominion's fleet. Our envoys report entire sectors burning. I closed the file and looked out through the forward viewport. Below us, Cavor Prime burned, a planet consumed by the consequences of its leader's arrogance. And we weren't finished yet. "Prepare the ground assault," I ordered. "Deploy shock troops to key zones. I want their high command found and eliminated." "Yes, sir." The orders rippled through the fleet. Dropships launched in waves, descending toward the ravaged surface. Each one carried elite human soldiers. Battle-hardened, unflinching, driven by the same need for retribution that had fueled this entire campaign. I watched them go, a cold satisfaction settling in my gut. This wasn't just war. It was a message. To anyone else watching from the shadows. An hour later, I was in the command briefing room, reviewing the latest recon feeds from our troops on the ground. The Cavor cities were in chaos. Military resistance collapsing, civilians fleeing in terror. Our forces were moving sector by sector, clearing bunkers, executing strategic strikes. A transmission came through from Colonel Briggs, leading the assault on the Capitol spire. "Commodore, we've breached the primary command complex. Minimal resistance. We found members of the Dominion Council. What's left of them?" "Status?" I asked. Briggs gave a grim smile. "Cowards, hiding in an emergency shelter. They're surrendering. Begging, actually." "Understood. No broadcasts. No public statements." He nodded. "Orders?" "Eliminate them." No hesitation. No mercy. They had ordered the slaughter at Epsilon Eridani. They would pay in kind. I cut the link and leaned back in my chair, the weight of the campaign pressing against me. We were winning. No, we had won. But victory was a hollow thing. The dead didn't come back. The scars would last forever. The only comfort was knowing that no other species would make the same mistake again. "Sir," my XO entered the room. "Long-range scans picking up new contacts. Unknown configuration." "Hostile?" "Too early to tell. They're keeping distance, possibly observing." I stood. "Bring us to alert status. Ready the fleet." "Yes, sir." An hour later, I stood once again on the bridge, eyes locked on the tactical display. A new fleet hovered at the edge of the system. Sleek, unfamiliar ships with markings we didn't recognize. "Signal them," I ordered. Our hails went unanswered. But then at last, a single transmission came through, audio only. "Human Commander, we are observers, not enemies." I exchanged a glance with my XO. "Identify yourselves." A pause. "We are the Valari Ascendancy. You do not know us, but we know you, and we have seen what you are capable of." The voice was calm, almost reverent, no trace of threat. "We offer advice. Be cautious. The galaxy watches you now, and not all will remain neutral." I answered coldly. "Let them watch. They will learn what the Cavor learned." A brief pause, then the voice replied, "Many already have." "The warnings are spreading. Entire sectors speak of your wrath. But take heed. Others may unite against you, if fear turns to desperation." A veiled warning, perhaps, or genuine counsel. It didn't matter. "We will deal with them if they do," I said. "And if they attack, well, they've been warned." The transmission ended. Later, in the dim silence of my quarters, I sat alone, staring at the stars beyond the viewport. The war wasn't over, not truly. The Cavor were broken, but new enemies would rise. New challenges would come. I knew that. Every man in the fleet knew that. But something deeper had changed. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. We had become something else. A force to be feared. A species no longer underestimated. And across the galaxy, in the dark corners of distant space, the warning now echoed louder than ever. Do not attack the humans. You will never escape their wrath. I smiled. A cold, grim smile. Let them come. The days that followed the fall of Cavour Prime were a blur of brutal efficiency. No celebration, no parades, just the relentless work of dismantling what remained of the Dominion. Fleet Command had issued new orders: press forward, eliminate remaining Cavour strongholds, and ensure no remnants of their war machine survived to fight another day. But behind those orders, something darker had taken root. A hunger. A momentum that was hard to stop once it began. You don't burn worlds and then pretend you're the same man afterward. I knew that better than anyone. I stood on the Retribution's observation deck, watching troop transports cycle back and forth between orbit and the shattered surface below. Fires still raged in what was left of the capital city. Whole sectors had been leveled in precision strikes, or not-so-precision strikes when my men had wanted to make a point. The message was clear. No one attacked humanity without consequences. No one. "Commodore," my XO, Commander Briggs, approached with a hard expression. He didn't mince words. "Fleet Command's latest packet just arrived. There's a situation." "Go on." He handed me a data slate. The moment I saw the contents, my jaw tightened. The Cavour had allies. Not official, not declared, but sympathetic states that had quietly supplied them with tech and intelligence. Now, some of those same powers were mobilizing fleets. Not openly attacking, but moving into defensive positions along their borders. Defensive. Right. That was always the excuse, right until the first shot was fired. "They think we'll stop now," Briggs said, "or that we're too bloodied to push further." "They're wrong." He nodded grimly. "Fleet Command wants us to spearhead the next push, strike first before they can consolidate. Preemptive action." Preemptive action. No more sitting back and waiting. No more reactionary defense. Humanity had decided to take the war to the stars. I looked out at the stars beyond the viewport. Cold, endless, indifferent. Somewhere out there, more enemies plotted, thinking they could weather the storm. They hadn't learned the lesson yet. "Prepare the fleet," I ordered. "Full combat readiness. We move within the next 24 hours. "Yes, sir." The target was a system called Veltrax 4, a frontier stronghold for the Jaran Collective, one of the Cavour's quiet supporters. They hadn't officially declared war on us, but our intelligence had intercepted enough evidence to prove they'd been supplying Cavour fleets with advanced sensor tech and stealth modules. They thought they could hide behind plausible deniability. They were wrong. We translated into the Veltrax system with the full weight of the 3rd Human Expeditionary Fleet. 60 capital ships, hundreds of support craft, and enough firepower to reduce a planet to rubble. The moment we arrived, Jaran forces scrambled to respond. Their fleet was smaller than ours, but they had fortified orbital platforms and advanced ECM systems. Clever. But clever wasn't enough. "Engage at will," I ordered. The battle unfolded with brutal speed. Human warships drove straight into the heart of the Jaran formation, ignoring decoys and electronic interference. We had learned their tricks in the first year of the war, adapted, evolved. They were still playing catch-up. Railguns and Gauss cannons punched through their shields. EMP warheads shorted their command nodes. Our strike fighters, pilots hardened by dozens of sorties, cut through their lighter ships like wolves tearing apart prey. I watched impassively as the tactical display updated, enemy signatures winking out one by one. "Orbital platforms neutralized," Briggs reported. "Enemy flagship disabled. Minimal resistance remaining." "Begin orbital bombardment," I said. "Target military infrastructure first. Civilian sectors, only if resistance continues." We hit their ground facilities with kinetic strikes, using mass drivers to pulverize hardened bunkers. When pockets of resistance held out, we deployed shock teams. The ground campaign lasted less than a week. I personally oversaw the surrender of the Jaran planetary governor, a pompous alien bureaucrat who tried to bargain for mercy. I gave him none. As word spread of Veltrax's fall, something strange began happening. Messages flooded human channels, not threats, not demands, but pleas. From minor powers, trade guilds, even rival states. They weren't aligned with the Cavor, but they were afraid now, afraid humanity had become unstoppable. I spent long nights reading through them. Some begged for assurances that we wouldn't come for them next. Others offered intelligence, technology, bribes to be left alone. And among those messages were more of the same warnings we'd heard since the start. Do not attack the humans. They will not stop. Their wrath cannot be escaped. Even species who had remained neutral now whispered our name with fear. Some began evacuating border colonies. Others abandoned outposts entirely, leaving behind empty star stations and dead space. Yet not everyone was content to cower. In the shadows, new alliances were forming. Intelligence reports spoke of secret conferences, old enemies banding together out of desperation. If humanity had become a threat too great for any one power to face, they would try to unite against us. I knew this, and so did Fleet Command. The question was, would we let them? One night, while reviewing fleet readiness reports in my quarters, an encrypted transmission came through. Priority 1. Untraceable. I accepted the call. A hooded figure appeared on the screen. An alien, but one I didn't recognize. Not Jaran, not Cavor. You do not know me, human, the figure said in heavily accented English. But I represent others, those who see what you have done and what you will do. Get to the point, I replied coldly. You must understand, the galaxy is changing. Your victories have drawn attention. You are feared, respected. But if you continue on this path, there will be consequences. I leaned forward. There already were consequences. 2 million dead civilians at Epsilon Eridani. We are merely balancing the scales. The figure's tone remained calm. And when the scales tip too far, when the entire galaxy views you as the next great threat? They already do. A pause. Then know this. Others will come. Stronger. United. And not all will fear your wrath. Some will seek to end it. The transmission cut out before I could respond. I sat in the dark afterward, staring at the blank screen. The message wasn't new. We had known this was coming. But now the clock was ticking. Humanity had broken the Cavor. We had shattered the Jaran Collective's ambitions. And in doing so, we had become something the galaxy had never seen before. An apex predator in a universe of predators. But apex predators draw challengers. Sooner or later, someone would come to test us. And when they did, they would hear the same warning the others had ignored. Do not attack the humans. You will never escape their wrath. The council chamber at Arcturus Command was cold. Steel walls, dim lights, no hint of comfort. It wasn't meant for comfort. It was a war room. I stood before the assembled admirals and generals, a holo display of the galaxy spinning slowly in the center of the chamber. Red markers blinked across the stars, enemy movements, new alliances, intelligence updates. The map was getting more crowded by the day. Fleet Command's lead strategist, Admiral Corwin, spoke first. A sharp-eyed man, his voice was all steel. We've confirmed the formation of a coalition. At least 7 species are involved. Former rivals now cooperating out of fear of humanity's expansion. He tapped the holo display. New emblems flared across the map. The Threxian Confederacy, the Karvath Enclave, Velari Ascendancy, even though they had once claimed to be mere observers, and others, lesser-known powers drawn together by desperation. They call it the Concord of Preservation, Corwin continued, his lip curling in disdain. Their stated goal is containment, to prevent further human aggression. Containment, the polite word for blockade, for strangling supply lines, for surrounding us. I crossed my arms. How strong are they? Combined, substantial, not larger than our fleets in raw numbers, but their logistics span multiple sectors. They're using deep space relay networks we haven't mapped yet, and they're coordinating through secure channels we've only partially penetrated. I glanced around the room. Every officer here had blood on their hands from this war. None would flinch. But even so, this was no longer a series of isolated battles. It was becoming a full-scale galactic conflict. They'll come at us on multiple fronts, I said. Force us to stretch thin. Corwin nodded grimly. That's their plan. The Supreme Commander of the Navy, Admiral Hurst, spoke next. He was old school, a man who had seen humanity's first fumbling efforts at interstellar war and had shaped the doctrines we now used to burn worlds. If they want a war, Hurst said, voice low, they'll get one. But this time, we must be deliberate, surgical. Every strike must send a message. He turned to me. Commodore Mercer, you'll lead the vanguard. No hesitation. I nodded once. Targets? Multiple, Corwin said. You'll strike the Volari first. They're hosting key logistical hubs for the coalition. Cut them down, and the others will bleed supplies. I felt a grim satisfaction settle in my chest. The Volari had watched our rise with cold calculation, pretending neutrality while feeding intelligence to our enemies. Now they would pay for that cowardice. Within 72 hours, the Retribution and a new strike fleet translated into Volari frontier space. We came in hot. No diplomacy, no warning. That era was long past. Their border stations opened fire the moment we crossed into their system, but it was desperate and disorganized. Our battle group advanced with methodical precision, railgun rounds punching through their defensive satellites, fighters swarming past in coordinated waves. The Volari had advanced stealth tech, true, but against the tracking systems we'd developed over 2 years of war, they were naked. Every cloaked ship that tried to ambush us was shredded by our AI-driven point defenses and proximity mines. It was almost clinical. We smashed their primary refueling stations, destroyed supply depots, targeted deep space relays with long-range torpedoes. The message was clear. Your alliance cannot protect you, and just like before, the transmissions began. Not threats, please. Human Commander, cease your attack. We seek no open war. This is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. I laughed bitterly when I heard it. These cowards had spent months feeding our enemies intelligence, and now that the fire was at their door, they wanted mercy? Number I opened a channel. My voice went out across their system, raw and cold. You were warned. You chose to side with those who slaughtered our people. Now you will reap what you sowed. No further reply came. Only more explosions on the sensors as our strikes hit home. After the Volari system lay crippled, we regrouped at Arcturus Station. Reports flooded in, raids by conquered forces, skirmishes along the outer colonies. The galaxy was moving fast now, but something else caught my attention. A strange pattern in the intercepted transmissions. Warnings, yes, but also fear of something deeper, something new. Do not attack the humans, but also beware, they are changing, becoming something else. I brought the report to Admiral Hurst. He frowned as he read it. What's your take? He asked. I exhaled slowly. They've seen what we're capable of, but now they fear what we might become. He nodded, understanding. They should. I wasn't the same man who had commanded the Retribution at the start of this war. None of us were. After 2 years of ceaseless conflict, after watching entire worlds burn, something inside us had hardened. Broken, maybe. We didn't fight for survival anymore. We fought to dominate, to ensure no one would dare challenge humanity again. And the galaxy knew it. 1 week later, new intelligence changed everything. Our deep space scouts intercepted a high-level Concord transmission. It confirmed what I had suspected. They were preparing a coordinated multi-front assault. Not just raids, an attempt to crush human forces and sever our supply lines in a single massive strike. They would hit Arcturus, Sol, and Proxima Gate simultaneously. Their fleets were already on the move. I was called back to the War Council. The room was tenser this time. No bravado, just the grim calculus of survival. "We have a narrow window," Corwin said. "If we strike first, we can disrupt their staging grounds and force them to delay or scatter." Hurst looked at me. "Commodore Mercer, you'll lead the first wave. Penetrate deep into their staging sectors. Hit them hard enough that they can't launch a unified assault." I met his gaze without flinching. Understood. The mission was simple in concept, suicidal in execution. My fleet would jump deep into conquered territory beyond our current supply lines to cripple their coordination hubs. If we failed, we'd be trapped behind enemy lines with no way out. But if we succeeded, we'd buy humanity the time it needed to turn the tide for good. The night before the mission, I stood alone on the Retribution's bridge, gazing out at the stars. The warnings echoed in my mind. Do not attack the humans. You will never escape their wrath. But now even the warnings had changed. They are becoming something else, something worse. And they were right. We had become something worse, because we had no choice. Out here, in the cold depths of space, mercy was a weakness. Hesitation was death. Only strength mattered, only wrath kept us alive. I activated the fleet-wide comms. My voice echoed through every deck of every ship. "This is Commodore Mercer. You know what we face. The enemy comes not to negotiate, but to end us, to chain us again. But they have forgotten what they started. They have forgotten the worlds they burned, the families they slaughtered. We will remind them. We will show them that humanity does not kneel, and we will carve our warning into the stars. Do not attack the humans. You will never escape our wrath. Prepare for jump." The fleet engines rumbled to life. The stars shifted as our ships aligned for translation. The war was about to enter a new phase, one from which there would be no turning back. And as the countdown began, I smiled grimly to myself. Let them come. The fleet translated out of the void in perfect formation. 12 capital ships, 30 fast attack destroyers, and 3 carrier groups. It wasn't the largest force humanity had ever assembled, but it was fast, hard-hitting, and built for one purpose, to punch straight into the Concord's heart and leave a trail of wreckage behind. The target: Nathalos system. A remote but critical staging ground where Concord forces were gathering their supply ships and coordinating fleet movements. Intelligence suggested the system was lightly defended, or at least, that's what our analysts had hoped. I had no such illusions. As the stars stabilized on the main display, the truth was immediately clear. "Multiple enemy signatures," my XO called. "Far more than projected. Sir, they've reinforced since our last scan." Of course they had. The enemy wasn't stupid. They knew humanity had been probing their networks. They'd anticipated a preemptive strike. Now we were facing a full battle group, almost equal in size to our own, but numbers weren't everything. Not in this war. "Battle stations," I ordered calmly. "Form spearhead formation. Break through their center and drive for the primary relay station." "Yes, sir!" klaxons sounded throughout the Retribution. The crew moved with practiced efficiency. These were veterans, men and women who had survived dozens of battles, who had watched entire enemy fleets burn under their guns. Fear was long gone. In its place was something harder: resolve. The enemy came at us fast: Threxian cruisers, Karvath plasma frigates, Valari stealth ships, an eclectic mix of technologies barely held together by desperation and a shared hatred of humanity. But they lacked cohesion. We had drilled for this. Fire control. Prioritize command ships, I ordered. Disrupt their coordination. Railgun batteries on the Retribution roared to life, sending hypervelocity slugs tearing through enemy formations. Our destroyers darted ahead, laying down fields of shrapnel to break up incoming missile waves. Fighters screamed past in tight formations, swarming enemy interceptors with brutal precision. It was chaos, but controlled chaos. I watched the battle unfold with cold detachment. Ships exploded in brilliant blossoms of fire, hulls sheared apart under focused barrages. Enemy flagship attempting to retreat, Briggs reported. Pursue and destroy. No survivors. An hour into the battle, we had broken their center. Enemy vessels were scattering, their formation shattered. But we had paid for it. 3 destroyers lost, 2 more crippled. One of our carriers had taken heavy damage and was limping behind the main line. I felt every loss like a knife. These were not faceless numbers. They were men under my command. But the mission came first. Always first. We have a clear vector to the relay station, Briggs said. Take us in. The Enthalos relay was a massive construct, half a kilometer across, bristling with communications arrays and command uplinks. It was the nerve center of the Concord's operations in this sector. Destroy it, and their coordination would unravel for weeks. As we closed in, enemy point defenses opened fire, but it was too late. Our remaining carrier launched wave after wave of strike bombers. I watched the feed as the first wave punched through, torpedoes slamming into the relay's core. Explosions rippled across its superstructure. Then came the final barrage. Our dreadnought Vanguard fired its spinal railgun, a kinetic lance that tore the relay in 2. The station disintegrated, debris scattering across the system. We had done it. The Concord's forward staging in this sector was crippled. But there was no time to linger. The enemy wasn't blind. We had already intercepted transmissions calling for reinforcements from neighboring systems. Within hours, this sector would be swarming with hostile fleets. Prepare for extraction jump, I ordered. All ships, tight formation, no stragglers. Yes, sir. As the fleet moved to jump coordinates, the comms officer turned to me with an urgent tone. Sir, new transmission, priority channel, unknown source. I frowned. On screen. The display flickered. Then an alien figure appeared. Tall, gaunt, clad in ceremonial armor. A Valari warlord, by the markings. His voice was sharp, cold. Human commander, you think this victory means something? But you are only accelerating your downfall. I stared him down. We fight because your kind forced us to. We warned you. You chose this war. And you choose to escalate it beyond containment. Now the others will come. You cannot fight the entire galaxy. I smiled. A cold, grim smile. We'll see. The screen cut out. The fleet jumped back to friendly space, battered but victorious. The mission was a success, but the cost was high. Too high for some. In the medbay, I visited the wounded. Men with missing limbs, faces burned, eyes hollowed by what they'd seen. They still saluted when I entered. Still whispered the words every soldier now carried like a creed. Do not attack the humans. You will never escape their wrath. But I could see it in their eyes. The strain. The war was grinding us down. Turning us into something harder, yes, but also something darker. I wasn't sure where that road would end. Back at Arcturus, the news of our strike rippled through the fleet and beyond. Some called it reckless, others called it brilliant. But across alien channels, the message was clear. Human forces have struck deep into conquered space. The Enthalos relay is destroyed. Their fleets are unstoppable. And yet, new warnings began circulating. Warnings not from the conquered, but from neutral observers. Do not attack the humans. Do not corner them. They are becoming something worse, something that will burn worlds without hesitation. Even our allies, what few we had, began to express concern. Cautious messages from Earth's civilian leadership, asking whether the military's escalation was wise. But they didn't understand. They hadn't seen what we'd seen. You cannot reason with those who would see you destroyed. Admiral Hurst summoned me for a private meeting. His office was Spartan. No decorations, just a tactical display and a single bottle of aged whiskey. He poured 2 glasses. "You did well, Mercer," he said, "but the galaxy is shifting faster than we anticipated. The Concord's response will be brutal." I took the glass, but didn't drink. "Let them come." Hurst studied me for a long moment. "We're close to crossing a line," he said quietly, "if we haven't already. Once we do, there's no going back. No alliances, no neutrality, just us against the stars." I met his gaze without flinching. "Then let it be us against the stars." He nodded slowly, as if that was the answer he'd expected. "Get some rest, John," he said, using my first name for the first time. "You'll need it. The next phase is coming fast." That night, I stood alone in my quarters, gazing out at the void. I could feel it, the weight of the war pressing down. The galaxy was closing ranks. The Concord would strike back with everything they had. And humanity was no longer fighting for revenge. We were fighting for dominance, for survival on a scale no one had ever imagined. The old warnings echoed louder than ever. Do not attack the humans. You will never escape their wrath. But now, even that wasn't enough. The galaxy feared us. But fear breeds desperation. And desperate enemies are the most dangerous of all. I knew the next battles would be worse, bloodier. The stars would burn before this war ended. And when it was over, I wasn't sure what would be left of us. But one thing I knew for certain. We would not kneel. We would not break. We would carve our place in this galaxy in fire and blood if we had to. It came faster than even I expected. Barely 3 days after our strike on Enthalos, the first reports hit Fleet Command like a hammer blow. Multiple Concord fleets mobilizing simultaneously, not in scattered raids, but in coordinated waves across 3 fronts. Admiral Corwin stood grim-faced at the central holotable in Arcturus Command, stars shifting and blinking red across the map. The Sol Corridor, the Arcturus Sector, Proxima Gate. "This is it," he said bluntly. "Their counteroffensive." I stood opposite him, arms crossed, watching the tide of data. It wasn't just military formations anymore, whole civilian sectors evacuating, trade convoys redirected or vanished, black market rumors of mercenary fleets being hired to supplement the Concord's forces. They weren't going to try to contain us anymore. They were coming to break us. Admiral Hurst entered then, eyes burning with that cold fire only men like him possessed. "We always knew this was coming," he said. "They're throwing everything they have. If we falter here, humanity becomes prey again. There is no room for error." Corwin nodded. "We've drawn up deployment plans, but the sheer scale, they're fielding at least 5 main fleets." I studied the display. "If we stay on the defensive, we bleed slowly and die. We need to hit their supply lines, disrupt the offensive, force them to fight on our terms." Hurst looked straight at me. "Exactly why you're here, Mercer. You'll command Task Force Omega. Deep strike into conquered territory, hit their logistics, force them to redeploy." Another suicide mission. I didn't flinch. "When do we leave?" "Within 48 hours. By the time I returned to the Retribution, the mood across the fleet had shifted. No more talk of if we were going to face the Concorde's hammer, only when. The ship was a living machine now, crew moving like gears in a clock, weapons crews running endless drills, engineers pushing the reactors and AI battle cores to peak readiness. I gathered my senior officers in the main war room. "You've seen the reports," I told them. "This is no longer about retribution. This is about survival. We take this fight to them, or we watch Earth burn." No one argued. Commander Briggs spoke first. "Targets?" I pulled up the data. Carvath Sector 12, a cluster of deep space logistics hubs critical to the Concorde's offensive staging. Intelligence suggested they were poorly defended, because until now, no one had dared strike that deep into their space. We would dare. The fleet moved out under heavy jamming screens. Every ship carried Black Ops stealth tech and long-range fuel reserves. We wouldn't be returning soon. As we translated through the first jumps, I stood alone on the observation deck, watching the endless black. Even here, the warnings echoed through alien space, intercepted on every channel. "Do not attack the humans. You will never escape their wrath." But now the tone had changed. It wasn't just fear, it was hate. The galaxy had seen our strength, and now it would throw everything at us to stop us. When we arrived in Carvath Sector 12, the stars shimmered in a sickly green haze, ion storms from nearby neutron stars making sensor readings unreliable. But our strike group was built for this. We hit their logistics hubs like a hammer from the dark. No warning, no declarations. Precision strikes with railguns and stealth torpedoes. Whole freighter convoys shattered before their escorts even knew we were there. Data nodes were fried, AI command cores destroyed, their fleet coordinators blinded. "Enemy forces attempting to scramble response groups," Briggs reported mid-assault. "Too late," I said. "Continue strikes. Maximum disruption." The Carvath defenders fought hard, but too slow, too fractured. Their tech was advanced, but their crews weren't forged in years of total war like ours. One of their dreadnoughts tried to make a stand. We burned it down in a focused barrage that punched clean through its core. We spent 3 days tearing through Sector 12. By the time Concord reinforcements arrived, the damage was done. Half their offensive supply lines crippled, multiple staging hubs reduced to drifting debris. But then came the first real test. Our long-range scouts reported multiple Concord fleets converging, not fractured, coordinated, using jump relays we hadn't mapped. Our deep strike was no longer a hit and run. Now, it was a race to survive. "Prepare for combat breakout," I ordered. "Full burn to extraction coordinates. No formation holds. Priority is speed and survival." "Understood." The fleet moved fast, too fast for standard battle cohesion, but discipline held. Behind us, Concord ships swarmed, their signals growing stronger by the hour. I stood on the Retribution's bridge, watching the pursuit unfold. We were punching back hard, destroying flanking forces, laying mines, disrupting pursuit. But the enemy was adapting. "Sir, priority transmission coming through," my comms officer shouted. "Source?" "Unknown. Scrambled, but human frequency." I frowned. "Put it through." The voice that crackled through was one I hadn't heard in months. Admiral Rayner, commanding one of our deep patrol groups. "Mercer, this is Rayner. Pull back to coordinates Theta 9. It's a trap. Concord has seeded the extraction corridor. If you run the plotted vector, you'll be boxed and annihilated." I didn't hesitate. "Helm, adjust course to Theta 9. Prepare for emergency jump." The shift saved us. Barely. As we diverted, our sensors lit up with hidden Concord ambush groups, exactly where the original jump vector had pointed us. They had learned from Enthalos. They were trying to wipe us out completely, but they had underestimated our adaptability. Again. After a brutal running battle through the fringe systems, we finally punched through to friendly space. Barely. Our fleet was down 5 more ships. The Retribution herself had taken a near miss on her port side, leaving scorched armor and half a weapons battery offline. But we had crippled their offensive momentum. The entire Concord push had been delayed, Reports confirmed at least 2 enemy fleets forced to pull back to resecure their shattered supply chain. Back at Arcturus, I met again with Admiral Hurst. He looked older now, lines etched deep, eyes burning brighter than ever. "You've bought us time," he said. "But they'll come harder now. They've tasted our steel. Now they want blood." I nodded grimly. "Then let them come. They still don't understand." He raised an eyebrow. "What don't they understand, John?" I leaned forward. "This isn't about fleets anymore, or systems, or even survival. This is about dominance. They tried to end us. They tried to shatter humanity, and we will show them, show the entire galaxy, that we will not be broken, we will not kneel. And when this war is over, they will remember forever. Do not attack the humans. You will never escape our wrath." That night, standing alone on the Retribution's bridge, watching the void, I felt it settle in my bones. The next phase was coming. The conquered wouldn't stop now. They'd throw everything they had. Desperation made enemies dangerous. But so did we. And whatever it took, however far we had to fall, we would not lose. The galaxy was watching. And soon, it would burn. The conquered came into force. Just as Admiral Hurst predicted, the respite was brief. Mere weeks after our deep strike into Karvath space, the largest coordinated offensive the galaxy had seen in a generation slammed into human territory like a tidal wave. We intercepted pieces of their communications, fragmented, encoded. But one thing was clear. They had abandoned the pretense of containment. Now it was annihilation. Their fleets advanced on 3 major fronts: the Sol Corridor, Arcturus, and the Proxima Gate. I was assigned to the Arcturus defense line, the linchpin of our forward command. If it fell, the heart of human-controlled space would be exposed. The War Council was a grim affair. Admiral Corwin led the briefing, the holomap painted in red vectors converging on human space. "They're fielding at least 8 primary fleets," he said. "That's over 1,000 capital ships, multiple species technologies, hybridized weapon platforms, joint command structures. They've learned from us." A pause. "But so have we." Fleet Command's strategy was simple in its brutality. Bleed them. They wanted an overwhelming push? We'd give them one. But we'd make them pay for every kilometer of space, every jump gate, every station. "Hit and run in depth," Hurst explained. "No static defenses. Lure them deeper. Stretch their supply lines, force logistical collapse." And when they were overextended, that's when we'd counterpunch. The Arcturus sector was a maze of asteroid belts, dead systems, abandoned colonies, perfect terrain for asymmetric warfare. I knew it well. We'd trained for this scenario for 2 years. Now it was time to execute. We deployed in layers, hunter-killer groups, stealth frigates, long-range strike wings. My command, the Retribution and its battle group, anchored Task Group Alpha, the first line of flexible resistance. Our mission: delay the conquered vanguard, break their momentum. The enemy came in waves, Threxian spear fleets, Karvath dreadnought lines, Valari stealth cruisers. Their coordination was frightening, better than I'd seen in any prior battle. Their hatred was palpable. They were learning, but they hadn't learned enough. We hit them hard. Hit and fade, strike at their escorts, cripple their command ships, then vanish into the rocks. The Retribution's railguns sang with each ambush, tearing through enemy shielding. Our stealth frigates seeded entire belts with AI-guided torpedoes that stalked enemy capital ships like wolves. They advanced, but at staggering cost. Every destroyed human outpost became a trap. Every abandoned station, a kill box. Their crews began transmitting desperate signals. "Beware! Do not pursue them into the rocks! They fight like predators!" 3 weeks into the campaign, Their forward momentum stalled. The first conquered fleets began to fragment. Logistical stress, crew exhaustion, mounting losses. But their admirals pressed on, driven by the same desperation that had forged their alliance. They had committed too far to stop now, and that made them vulnerable. Admiral Hurst called the counteroffensive. "Time to remind them why they fear us," he said. We struck without warning. Human fleet elements emerged from deep cover, striking enemy formations already ragged from the constant bleeding. Our strike wings bypassed their heavy units and targeted support craft, fuel tenders, repair ships, command relays. Without those, even the most advanced enemy fleets crumbled. The battle over Geithar's Rift was the turning point. A conquered supercarrier group had pushed deep into the sector, trying to establish a permanent foothold. We hit them with everything: kinetic strikes, EMP barrages, precision fighter waves. The void lit with fire. I stood on the Retribution's bridge, watching their command carrier tear apart under coordinated railgun fire. "Enemy flagship down," Briggs reported, voice hard. "Press the advantage," I ordered. "No escape." We chased them across the rift, system by system, hunting their crippled survivors. Their transmissions grew more frantic by the day. "Do not attack the humans. Do not pursue them. They do not fight like us. They do not stop." And even worse, they are becoming something else, something even we cannot understand. But not all victories came without price. Our own losses were mounting. Ships burned, crews broken, whole squadrons decimated in brutal knife-fight engagements. I walked the decks after each battle, seeing it in my men's eyes, the hollow exhaustion, the cold fury. They had become predators, but the cost was steep. How much of our humanity remained, I wasn't sure. At Arcturus, fleet intelligence confirmed the worst. The Concord was preparing a final push. "They've committed their strategic reserves," Corwin said. "This is it, all or nothing. They either break us here, or their alliance collapses." Admiral Hurst looked to me. "Mercer, can your group hold the center line?" I met his gaze without hesitation. "We'll hold." The final battle loomed. The Arcturus Gauntlet, a narrow corridor of gravity wells and stellar debris, would be the battlefield. It was perfect for us, terrain that favored ambushes and asymmetric warfare. But the Concord knew it, too. They were bringing everything, over 400 capital ships. Our combined human fleets could barely match them. But what we lacked in numbers, we made up for in blood-forged experience. The night before the battle, I walked the Retribution's decks. Every crewman knew what was coming. No illusions, no bravado, just hard eyes and silent resolve. I gathered them on the main communication. "We stand at the edge of everything," I told them. "They seek to break us, to end humanity's place among the stars. But they have forgotten one thing. We are not like them. We do not forget. We do not forgive. And we will show them, one last time, that to attack humanity is to invite annihilation. Because there is no escape from our wrath." As the conquered fleets advanced into the gauntlet, the stars seemed to darken. Our ships lay in wait, hidden among the rocks, powered down, weapons primed. The final battle was about to begin. And whatever the cost, we would ensure the galaxy never forgot this day. They came like a storm. 400 conquered capital ships surged into the Arcturus Gauntlet, weapons hot, formation tight, sensors blazing. This was it, their final gamble. Break humanity here, and the war was theirs. But they had stepped into a trap forged from blood, steel, and human wrath. Our fleets lay hidden, buried in asteroid fields, deep under magnetic shadows, powered down to avoid detection. Every ship had standing orders. Wait for my signal. No early fire, no panic. When they commit, we strike. I stood on the Retribution's bridge, calm as ice, watching the enemy advance on the tactical display. Fleet elements entering kill zone, Briggs reported quietly. Estimated 20% committed. Not enough, I said. Wait. The seconds crawled. The enemy pressed deeper, unaware or unwilling to turn back. Desperation had blinded them. 40% committed, Briggs whispered. Still not enough. At 60%, the enemy vanguard passed the final navigational marker. Their heavy carriers had exposed flanks. Their battleship screens were stretched thin. Their formation was locked into the narrowest part of the corridor. Now I keyed the command line. All ships, execute. The void exploded. Railgun salvos ripped from hidden emplacements. Torpedo waves burst from stealth frigates. Entire asteroid fields detonated with plasma mines laid weeks in advance. The conquered center shattered in the first 30 seconds. Their tight formation became a chaotic swirl of panicked vessels trying to turn, trying to retreat. But the gauntlet gave no room to maneuver. We had them boxed. Press the attack, I ordered. Retribution's main batteries tore through enemy dreadnoughts at close range. Fighter wings swarmed their crippled carriers. Destroyer packs knifed through exposed flanks, gutting escort lines. It wasn't a battle, it was a massacre. Enemy comms flooded with desperate cries. They're everywhere. It's a slaughter. Retreat! Retreat! Do not attack the humans, dear gods. Do not attack them. Too late. They had attacked. They had invited this. For 6 hours, the void burned. I moved through the Retribution's decks between fire missions, watching my crew work with terrifying precision. No mercy, no hesitation, just the grim execution of the mission. We had become what the galaxy feared, ruthless, relentless, unstoppable. By the time the last conquered formation broke, over 300 enemy ships lay drifting wreckage. The survivors fled in disarray. No formation, no discipline. Scattered ships jumped blindly, leaving comrades behind. The conquered alliance was broken. But I gave one final order before the guns went cold. No pursuit beyond the gauntlet. Let them run. Let them carry the message. Briggs looked at me. To spread the warning? I nodded once. To make sure the next generation remembers. As the wreckage drifted and the fires dimmed, a cold silence settled over the fleet. Victory, but not celebration. We all knew the price. In the days that followed, alien channels exploded with transmissions. The conquered has fallen. The humans are unbeatable. Do not attack them. Do not provoke them. There is no escape from their wrath. Some called for surrender, some called for isolation, but none called for war again. Admiral Hurst summoned me one final time. You've done what no one thought possible, he said. His voice was tired, but his eyes burned. You've made the galaxy fear us. I met his gaze. And now? He exhaled. Now we hold the line. We rebuild, and we remind them every year, every decade, that humanity does not kneel. The official orders came down days later. Human fleets to maintain full readiness for the foreseeable future. No peace treaties, no disarmament, only deterrence, by strength, by memory. The galaxy had seen what we could do. Now they would remember. I returned to the Retribution, now the most decorated warship in human history. But I felt no pride, only a cold certainty. We had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The galaxy feared us now. But at what cost? I looked at my reflection in the viewport. Hollow eyes, hard face, no turning back, no softness. Just this truth, echoing across the stars. Do not attack the humans. You will never escape their wrath. And if they ever forgot, we would remind them. In fire, in steel, and in blood. The galaxy had long believed humanity to be a weak, fractured species. They were unpredictable, stubborn, and dangerously curious, but they lacked the unifying discipline that made other civilizations formidable. That belief held until the day the stars went dark. It started with the disappearance of the Argaxian harvest fleet. An automated distress signal had pinged from the edge of Sector 9, a remote region occupied by sparse mining outposts. No one paid much attention at first. Pirates were a nuisance there, and Argaxians were known to exaggerate threats. But when no further signals came and the entire fleet vanished from long-range scanners, curiosity took hold. The Galactic Council dispatched a scout ship to investigate, but it never returned. Then a second. Then a third. It wasn't until the Zuricans, one of the most advanced species in the galaxy, sent a Dreadnought-class warship that the truth finally emerged. The wreckage of the Argaxian fleet drifted through the void, its hulls riddled with holes, torn apart as if from the inside. There were no survivors, no signs of battle, just empty, shredded shells of once mighty ships. Panic whispered through the galactic community. Was it a new, unknown enemy? A cosmic anomaly? No one had answers. Surveillance drones were dispatched, and their data feeds revealed something truly terrifying. The insignia of Earth's Terran Confederacy emblazoned on fragments of hull plating. Humanity, those chaotic, scattered beings, had somehow obliterated one of the galaxy's most formidable armadas. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Ambassadors from dozens of species argued and shouted, their fear palpable. Humanity was supposed to be a minor annoyance, confined to a tiny cluster of planets. How had they wiped out an entire battle group? Why had they done it? During the chaotic deliberations, another distress signal cut through the Council's broadcast network, this time from the Zinthari Nebula. The Zurican dreadnought had been found, its colossal frame cracked and smoldering, adrift like a tomb. Panic turned to terror as grainy footage from a damaged drone played on the Council's central display, human warships, hundreds of them, materializing from hyperspace, their hulls sleek and bristling with unrecognizable weaponry. One ship alone dwarfed the dreadnought. The humans hadn't just evolved, they had transformed into a war machine. Council intelligence scrambled to understand what had changed. Spies were dispatched to human colonies, but they returned with fragmented reports, murmurs of unification, whispers of a grand project spanning decades. Somehow, humanity had consolidated its fractured states and pooled its knowledge. They had harnessed their chaotic nature, turning it into a singular, unstoppable force. Then, the message came. A single transmission from the Terran Confederacy addressed the entire galaxy. To the so-called galactic powers, you thought us weak, fragmented, and insignificant. You ignored our pleas when our colonies were raided, when our trade routes were pillaged, and when our diplomats were executed without cause. You thought humanity would cower and scatter. You were wrong. We have not forgotten. We are coming. Humanity sends 700,000 warships. Prepare yourselves. The transmission cut off, leaving silence heavier than a neutron star. Panic erupted among the council members. Some called for surrender, others for preemptive strikes. Alliances were forged in seconds. Races that had warred for millennia now sought each other's protection. The galaxy, for all its power and sophistication, was unprepared for the coming storm. As star systems mobilized their defenses, reports came flooding in, human fleets advancing on multiple fronts, their ships moving with ruthless precision. They didn't pause to communicate or negotiate. They simply attacked, systematically dismantling every fleet that dared to stand against them. World after world fell, and the galaxy watched in horror as humanity, once underestimated and mocked, burned across the stars like a vengeful wildfire. Those who survived whispered among themselves, fearing the inevitable truth. Humanity was no longer a scattered threat. It was an unyielding force, and the galaxy had no one to blame but itself. The war had only just begun. As the first wave of humanity's war machine surged through the outer systems, the galaxy struggled to comprehend the sheer magnitude of the threat. Reports of entire planets being razed and orbital defenses being shattered came in faster than they could be processed. The Galactic Council, which had once debated trade tariffs and border disputes, now found itself on the brink of collapse. Admiral Kelnar of the Zuricon Empire, one of the most respected and feared military minds in the galaxy, was tasked with organizing a counteroffensive. He gathered representatives from every species willing to fight: Calorians with their plasma lances, Vraxians with their telepathic coordination, and even the elusive Tharn, who rarely involved themselves in galactic conflicts. But despite their combined might, none of them could shake the fear gnawing at their hearts. "They move like a single organism," Kelnar growled, glaring at the holographic star map where human fleets carved lines of destruction through star systems. "How did they unify so quickly? Last we knew, they were still bickering among themselves?" High Strategist Yorvax, a reptilian Vraxian, hissed in agreement. "Our spies detected a change almost a decade ago. Some kind of unification protocol. Project Dominion, they called it. The humans must have ended their internal disputes. Somehow they forged a single purpose." "But that's impossible," snapped Ambassador Threla of the Valdir. "Humans are chaotic by nature. They fought each other more viciously than any alien invader. How could they become this war machine?" Kelnar narrowed his gaze. "Perhaps it was that very chaos that gave them strength. We were too arrogant to see it. While we were complacent, they were evolving." Suddenly, an urgent transmission crackled through the war room. A young officer rushed to Kelnar's side, his face pale. "Admiral, we just received footage from the Raiden system. They've deployed the Titans." "The Titans?" Kelnar's blood ran cold. He knew the term from outdated reports: massive capital ships rumored to dwarf any dreadnought in existence. He gestured to the technician, who activated the feed. The image flickered to life, showing a fleet of colossal human warships emerging from hyperspace. Each one was a behemoth of steel and fury, bristling with energy weapons that pulsed with a sinister red glow. Planetary defense platforms fired in vain, their projectiles disintegrating against powerful energy shields. One of the Titans opened fire, a single beam slicing through 3 orbital stations like they were made of paper. As the feed faded to static, Kelnar gritted his teeth. "We cannot fight this. Not head-on." Yorvax's eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting we surrender?" "Never," Kelnar snapped. "But we must be smart. Humanity may be a unified force now, but they are still driven by pride. If we can lure their main fleet into a trap, perhaps around the gas giant at Auric V, we might be able to detonate the planet's core and take a large portion of their armada with it." Threla scoffed. "And what if they see through it? What if they destroy us before we even reach the gas giant?" "Then we die fighting," Kelnar said grimly. "Better to make a stand than wait for them to pick us off one by one." The council room fell into uneasy silence, the enormity of the plan weighing down on them. Despite their advanced technology and millennia of experience in warfare, they were now facing an enemy driven not by conquest, but by vengeance, a species wronged and determined to claim the respect they had been denied for centuries. Messages from surviving fleets continued to trickle in, each more desperate than the last. The reports were clear. Humanity was not negotiating, not sparing anyone. They moved with cold efficiency, targeting infrastructure and communication hubs, dismantling civilizations piece by piece. Kelnar sent out orders to mobilize the remaining forces, ordering ships from every allied faction to regroup at Auric V. It was a gamble, a desperate, reckless plan, But it was all they had left. As the commanders dispersed, Yorvax lingered behind, his scaled hands clenched. "Do you think we can win?" he asked quietly. Kelnar didn't meet his gaze, his eyes fixed on the holographic map where red human markers continued to expand. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I do know one thing. We underestimated them, and that might be the mistake that dooms us all." The tension was suffocating, but there was no turning back now. As the War Council dissolved, the galaxy held its breath, knowing that the fate of countless worlds hung on the edge of a knife. As the fleet prepared for the desperate stand at Arik V, news of humanity's relentless advance continued to pour in. Reports indicated that the human armada had split into several battle groups, each targeting key sectors simultaneously. Strategic outposts were being annihilated with ruthless precision, leaving entire quadrants defenseless. The galaxy's most fortified strongholds had fallen within hours. Admiral Kelnar moved through the command center, issuing orders and rallying his officers. He couldn't afford to show fear, not when morale was already fragile. Yet deep inside, his stomach churned with a sense of impending doom. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Morvac, a wiry Calorian with sharp golden eyes. "New intel from the Harkon cluster. The human fleet decimated the entire orbital defense grid without taking a single loss. They're pushing towards the core worlds." Kelnar grunted. "Are there any survivors?" "A few escape pods made it out. We're getting debriefs now." He nodded, trying to process the nightmare unfolding across the galaxy. Just then, a communication request flashed on his console, from the Terran Confederacy itself. He hesitated, exchanging glances with his officers, then accepted the transmission. The screen flickered, revealing a human figure standing tall and imposing. She was dressed in a stark, obsidian uniform, adorned with the emblem of the Confederacy. Her cold, unblinking eyes seemed to pierce through the screen. "I am Grand Admiral Lyra Cole of the Terran Dominion Fleet," she stated, her voice unwavering and commanding. "Who am I addressing?" Admiral Kelnar straightened, refusing to let his fear show. "Admiral Kelnar of the Zurikan Empire and commander of the Galactic Defense Coalition." Her lips curled into a faint, humorless smile. "Ah, the Coalition. Desperation makes for strange alliances, doesn't it?" "You're declaring war on the entire galaxy, human," Kelnar shot back. "You cannot win. We will resist until the last star burns out." Grand Admiral Cole raised an eyebrow. "Interesting choice of words. Resistance is admirable, but futile. You brought this upon yourselves when you dismissed humanity as weak and expendable. When you raided our colonies and slaughtered our civilians. Did you think we'd forget? Did you think we'd always be the prey?" Kelnar clenched his jaw. "Revenge will not justify genocide. Your forces are but a spark against the vastness of the galaxy. You cannot defeat us all." "Can't we?" Cole's eyes glinted with ruthless determination. "We did not just prepare for this war, we transcended. You saw us as squabbling factions, but unity forged us into something more. We built, we innovated, and we weaponized our very spirit. We learned from your cruelties, your betrayals. Now, we repay the lessons." Kelnar struggled to keep his voice steady. "You're dooming yourselves to endless conflict. Your bloodlust will consume you." Cole tilted her head slightly. "Survival is our nature. Adaptation is our strength. The galaxy failed to learn that humanity does not break. We evolve." With that, the transmission cut out, leaving the command center in tense silence. Morvac was the first to speak, his voice shaking. "Sir, they're coming. Long-range sensors show a massive fleet moving toward Arik V. Estimated arrival in 3 standard hours." Kelnar felt his heart pounding in his chest. He knew this was it, the battle that would determine the fate of countless species. "Sound the alert. Prepare all ships and activate planetary defenses. Make sure every fighter pilot is ready to launch. We make our stand here." The command center erupted into activity as officers rushed to relay commands. Kelnar moved to the observation deck, staring out into the vastness of space, his thoughts racing. Would they stand a chance? Could they even slow the human onslaught? Yorvax approached, his serpentine form coiled in anxious tension. "Do you believe her words, Admiral? That we brought this upon ourselves?" Kelnar didn't answer right away. He had fought in countless battles, witnessed the arrogance of the galaxy's dominant powers as they dismissed humanity as irrelevant. Maybe they had pushed too far, underestimated the spirit of a species that refused to die quietly. But it didn't matter now. Regret wouldn't stop the death toll. "We underestimated them," he finally said, "but it's too late to debate the past. Right now, our only option is to fight and hope we can hold the line." As the countdown to the human fleet's arrival ticked away, Kelnar couldn't help but wonder if this was the end, if the galaxy itself would be reshaped by the fury of a species that had nothing left to lose. The tension aboard the flagship, Vorkarn, was suffocating as the countdown neared its final minutes. Fleet formations were finalized, defense grids activated, and every available ship was positioned to create a layered defense around HFY. Admiral Kelnar stood at the heart of the command deck, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the vast human fleet approaching from hyperspace. Morvac was coordinating the last of the fighter squadrons, his voice calm but strained. "All wings report ready, Admiral. Orbital cannons are powered up and standing by. We've loaded the destabilization charges on the gas giant, as ordered. They're primed to detonate if the fleet clusters near the gravitational well." Kelnar gave a sharp nod. "Good. Make sure the secondary fleet stays hidden on the dark side of HFY's moon. They're our last line of defense." Just then, Yorvax slithered up beside him, his scaled brow furrowed. "Are we truly prepared, Kelnar? Even with our best strategies, we're fighting a force unlike any we've faced." The Admiral didn't reply immediately. Instead, he watched as the first distortions appeared on the sensor grid, flashes of light, expanding and twisting as the fabric of space itself seemed to ripple. Human warships materialized in perfect formation, each vessel gleaming with deadly precision. The Titans, massive and ominous, moved at the heart of the armada. A whisper of dread swept through the command center. Kelnar swallowed his fear and opened the fleet-wide channel. "This is Admiral Kelnar to all coalition forces. The enemy has arrived. Remember what you're fighting for: your homes, your families, your very existence. We stand here because we refuse to bow to tyranny. Humanity seeks to break us, but we will hold the line. Today, we make them bleed." A resounding chorus of affirmations echoed through the comms. With a grim resolve, Kelnar raised his hand. "All batteries, open fire!" Energy beams and plasma lances screamed through the void, cutting across the blackness toward the human fleet. The leading Terran ships took the brunt of the assault, their shields flaring but holding. Moments later, the humans returned fire, and the sky erupted into chaos. Blue ion blasts lanced through coalition lines, disintegrating corvettes and frigates in an instant. Human railguns fired in unison, projectiles moving faster than thought, slicing through capital ships like they were paper. Kelnar watched in horror as an entire Calorian destroyer wing vanished in a burst of fiery debris. "Focus fire on the flanking groups," he shouted. "We need to break their formation." The coalition fleet adjusted, pouring concentrated fire on the human right flank, where a group of frigates was pressing forward. One ship crumpled under the barrage, but before they could capitalize on the weakness, the humans adapted. Titans shifted position, and massive disruptor waves erupted, temporarily scrambling coalition targeting systems. Morvac's voice cut through the chaos. "Admiral, We've lost contact with the Verinox cluster. The entire wing is gone. Kelnar slammed his fist against the console. Damn it! Pull back the reserve units to reinforce the left perimeter. We can't let them encircle us. But even as the orders were relayed, the humans executed their next move, deploying thousands of small, agile fighter drones that swarmed like a school of metallic piranhas, overwhelming point defenses and tearing through the exposed flanks. A surge of panic rose among the crew as more ships reported catastrophic damage. Kelnar's mind raced, calculating and recalculating odds, but the cold truth settled in. They were being outmaneuvered and outgunned at every turn. The humans didn't just fight with power, they fought with strategy, precision, and brutal efficiency. Yorvax slithered up, his usually composed face twisted with fear. Admiral, we must trigger the gas giant. It's our only chance to cripple their core fleet. Kelnar hesitated. The explosion would be catastrophic, potentially swallowing friend and foe alike. But what choice did they have? His jaw tightened, and he nodded. Activate the destabilization charges. All units fall back to minimum safe distance. Warnings flashed across the display as countdown timers appeared, each ticking toward detonation. The coalition ships pulled away, breaking formation, and the human fleet surged forward, sensing victory. The Titans advanced, pushing deeper into the gravitational well of Auric V. As the timer hit 0, the gas giant trembled. A chain reaction ignited within its dense core, and in an instant, the planet erupted in a titanic explosion. A shockwave of pure energy and volatile gases ripped through the void, engulfing the human vanguard and scattering debris for thousands of kilometers. Silence reigned as the remnants of the explosion faded. Sensor readings recalibrated, and for a moment, it seemed as if the impossible had happened. A significant portion of the human fleet was gone. Cheers erupted throughout the Coalition Command Center, officers clapping and celebrating what felt like a miracle. But Kelnar's instincts screamed at him to stay wary. As the residual energy cleared, his worst fears were realized. Through the dust and fire, human warships emerged, their shields flickering but intact. The Titans had survived, and with them hundreds of escort ships. The human armada regrouped, unbroken, as if mocking their desperate attempt to fight back. A message came through, Grand Admiral Cole's voice calm and unyielding. Impressive, Admiral. You fought well, but your desperation only confirms what we already knew. You're not prepared for humanity's wrath. We gave you a chance to surrender. Now, you face extinction. The realization hit Kelnar like a hammer blow. They hadn't even dented humanity's resolve. As his fleet continued to disintegrate under the renewed human assault, he knew the galaxy's fate was sealed. Humanity had come not just to conquer, but to erase. The shattered remnants of the coalition fleet scattered, desperately trying to regroup and form some semblance of defense. The colossal titans loomed over the battlefield like grim reapers, methodically hunting down survivors and obliterating anything that dared to move. Admiral Kelnar remained rooted at his console, numb with disbelief. They had gambled everything on the gas giant's detonation, and it had barely slowed humanity down. Across the command deck, the grim reality sank in. Officers whispered prayers to forgotten gods. Some simply stared at the screens, frozen with terror. Morvac approached Kelnar, his face pale and eyes hollow. "Admiral," he rasped, we lost the secondary fleet. The moon defense line collapsed. The humans are advancing on the planet itself." Kelnar's hands trembled, but he forced himself to remain steady. "Order the remaining ships to fall back to low orbit. We'll use the planetary cannons to cover their retreat. Prepare for ground combat. Auric V is our last stand." Morvac hesitated. "Sir, Is it even worth fighting anymore? We're just delaying the inevitable." Kelnar shot him a fierce glare. "If we fall here, the core worlds will have no warning. Every minute we buy is a minute they can use to prepare. We will fight to the last breath." As Morvac moved to relay the orders, Yorvax slid up beside Kelnar, his tone low and grim. "We underestimated them from the start. We never thought they could become this juggernaut. Their unity is terrifying. Even the mightiest galactic empires never forged something like this." Kelnar nodded slowly, his mind racing through fragments of reports, old intelligence briefings, and what Cole had said. Unity born from hate. We pushed them too far, treated them like insects to be crushed. And now, they're proving they're anything but. Suddenly, the comm officer shouted, "Incoming transmission from the planet's surface. Governor Theric is requesting immediate contact." Kelnar tapped his console, bringing up the governor's feed. Theric's face appeared, strained and sweating, his elaborate robes stained with ash. "Admiral, we're being overrun down here. Human drop pods are penetrating the atmosphere. Their soldiers are everywhere. Our city shields are buckling." Kelnar's chest tightened. "Hold the ground as long as possible. Evacuate civilians to the underground bunkers and lock them down. I'll send what support we can." Therac swallowed, fear evident in his eyes. "You don't understand. They're not just attacking military targets. They're sweeping through residential zones, slaughtering anyone they find. There's no mercy." The transmission cut off abruptly as explosions rocked the planet's surface, and Kelnar gritted his teeth. They weren't just fighting an army. They were facing the fury of a species bent on complete and utter annihilation. The command center shuddered as the ship's hull absorbed a glancing blow. Morvac called out from his station, "Direct hit on the port thrusters!" "We've lost maneuverability." Kelnar opened the fleet channel once more, his voice stern and commanding. "To all coalition forces, fall back to planetary defense zones. Ground troops prepare for urban combat. We will fight them on the surface if we must. We will not give up Arik V." As the warship descended through the atmosphere, Kelnar looked out at the horizon. Massive human dropships were already swarming across the skyline, disgorging thousands of infantry units equipped with powered exoskeletons and energy weapons. Coalition forces were desperately attempting to form defensive lines, but human precision fire tore through their formations, leaving nothing but scorched bodies and crumbling fortifications. As the Vorkarn touched down in the capital's central plaza, Kelnar prepared to disembark with his elite guard. Yorvax was already rallying troops, his scaled form weaving between soldiers as he issued orders. Morvac hurried over, carrying a plasma rifle, his usual crisp uniform now rumpled and stained. "Sir, are you sure about this? You're needed on the bridge." Kelnar shook his head. "The battle is here now. I won't hide while my people fight and die. Humanity wants to exterminate us? Let them see we don't die easily." The streets were chaos incarnate. Burning wreckage littered the avenues, and screams of terror filled the air as human shock troops advanced with brutal efficiency. Coalition soldiers fired from hastily erected barricades, but the humans moved like phantoms, appearing and disappearing with surgical precision. Kelnar ducked behind a crumbling monument as a human combat drone unleashed a burst of kinetic rounds, shredding two nearby soldiers. He leveled his plasma rifle and fired, scoring a direct hit that sent the drone crashing to the ground. "Regroup," he shouted to his troops. "Hold this plaza. Do not let them break through." Suddenly, the ground trembled, and a colossal Titan-class dropship descended, disgorging a fresh wave of armored infantry. One figure stood out among them, a tall, imposing woman in dark combat armor with a flowing crimson cape. Grand Admiral Lyra Cole herself. Kelnar's blood ran cold as she strode forward, her helmet retracting to reveal the same piercing eyes from the transmission. Her troops formed a defensive ring, but she stepped forward alone, fearless and composed. "So," she called out, her voice carrying over the gunfire, "the mighty Admiral Kelnar, fighting in the dirt with his soldiers. I almost respect that." He leveled his rifle at her, defiance burning in his gaze. "This world won't fall easily. You'll have to bury us all." Cole smiled faintly, a cruel, humorless grin. "Oh, I intend to." Before he could fire, a searing pain shot through his shoulder, and he collapsed to one knee, dropping his weapon. One of her snipers had hit him from a distance, and his blood soaked through his uniform. Cole walked closer, looming over him, her eyes cold and unyielding. "Your resistance is admirable but pointless. Humanity has risen above its fractured past, forged by your hatred and disrespect. You will not stop us." Kelnar gritted his teeth, glaring up at her. "You're nothing but monsters, slaughtering civilians, annihilating entire worlds. How is that different from what you claimed to hate?" Her face remained impassive. "Monsters? Number survivors. You taught us that the galaxy only respects power and brutality. We're merely following your example." With that, she gestured to her troops, and Kelnar was dragged away, bleeding and broken. As the coalition forces crumbled around him and the human banners rose above the city, he couldn't help but wonder if they had always been doomed from the start, if the galaxy's arrogance had sealed its fate long before humanity unleashed its vengeance. The once proud capital of HFY was now a wasteland of smoldering ruins and scattered corpses. Human soldiers methodically swept the streets, executing any resistance they encountered and rounding up survivors. Smoke choked the sky, blotting out the sun, while the screams of the captured echoed through the shattered alleys. Admiral Kelnar was dragged through the debris-strewn streets, his hands bound and his uniform soaked with blood. He was barely conscious, every step sending a fresh wave of agony through his battered body. Human soldiers flanked him on both sides, their visors glinting coldly as they led him to the city square, where Grand Admiral Lyra Cole awaited. Cole stood at the center of the plaza, surrounded by her elite guard, overseeing the systematic execution of captured soldiers. One by one, coalition officers were forced to their knees and shot in the back of the head. There was no trial, no mercy, only cold, efficient slaughter. Kelnar was shoved forward, forced to kneel before Cole. She looked down at him with an expression devoid of pity or anger, just calculated indifference. One of her officers handed her a data slate, and she glanced at it briefly before addressing him. "Admiral Kelnar," she said, her tone as calm as if she were discussing logistics. "Your forces have been completely neutralized. The coalition is shattered. Your remaining ships are either destroyed or in full retreat. HFY is ours." Kelnar struggled to lift his head, blood dripping from his mouth. "You butchered civilians, children. This isn't war, it's genocide." Cole regarded him without flinching. "You of all people should understand. Your coalition slaughtered human colonists without remorse. Our outposts were burned to ash, our diplomats executed for daring to seek equality. Did you expect us to forget? To forgive?" He forced himself to meet her gaze. "We underestimated you. But this is madness. You're exterminating entire civilizations. You're no better than the monsters you claim to fight." For the first time, Cole's expression softened, just a fraction. "Perhaps not. But your galaxy made us this way. We tried peace. We tried cooperation. You spat on it, treated us as vermin. We learned your lesson well. Power is the only language the galaxy respects." A brutal cough racked Kelnar's body, but he didn't lower his gaze. "If you become the same evil, that wronged you, then what was the point of fighting?" Cole hesitated, as if the question genuinely gave her pause. But her resolve hardened in an instant. Survival. Humanity will not be prey again. We will not be slaves to anyone's arrogance or cruelty. We will carve our own future from the bones of those who doubted us. She motioned to her soldiers, and they hauled Kelnar to his feet, dragging him toward a makeshift gallows erected at the heart of the square. As they prepared the noose, Cole raised her voice, addressing the crowd of survivors, civilians and soldiers alike, forced to kneel and watch. This is the fate of all who defy humanity. You thought us weak, scattered, easy to conquer. You laughed when we begged for mercy and slaughtered our people without hesitation. Now the galaxy will burn until respect is carved into its very bones. We will not ask for forgiveness. We will take what is ours. The soldiers tightened the noose around Kelnar's neck, and he felt the rough fiber bite into his skin. He glanced at the terrified faces of his people, once proud warriors, now reduced to trembling captives. Despite the pain, he managed to summon his last reserves of strength and shouted out, his voice defiant and unwavering. "Your unity is born of hate, but it will destroy you from within. You can conquer the stars, but you will never find peace. Your vengeance will consume you." Cole looked at him with cold finality. "Peace is a luxury we can't afford, not while the galaxy remembers us as prey. Farewell, Admiral." With a swift motion of her hand, the lever was pulled, and Kelnar's body dropped, the rope snapping taut. His vision blurred, and his breath was ripped from his lungs. Darkness closed in, and the last thing he saw was Cole turning away, already giving new orders, efficient, relentless, unstoppable. The crowd was forced to watch until his body hung lifeless and still. Then the executions continued, as humanity made its brutal statement to the universe. Any who dared challenge them would be obliterated without hesitation or remorse. As the human war machine continued its relentless march across the stars, whispers of the massacre on HFY spread through the remaining coalition worlds. Terror gripped entire civilizations as they faced the horrifying reality that humanity was no longer the fragmented, chaotic race they once knew. They were a unified, ruthless force driven by a single purpose: to destroy those who had once scorned them. Resistance faltered and collapsed. Worlds surrendered without a fight, preferring submission over total annihilation. The Galactic Council dissolved, its members scattering like frightened insects. Humanity had taken the galaxy by storm, and now the stars themselves seemed to bend to their will. In the quiet aftermath, Grand Admiral Lyra Cole looked out from the bridge of her flagship, her mind burdened with the weight of victory. She had secured humanity's place as the dominant power, but somewhere deep within, a sliver of doubt gnawed at her. Had they truly triumphed, or had they merely traded one kind of tyranny for another? But doubt was a weakness she couldn't afford. The galaxy had to be brought to heel. Only then would humanity be safe from betrayal. Only then could they rest. With a deep breath, she steeled herself and gave the next command. Another world to conquer, another species to crush. There would be no forgiveness, no mercy, only the relentless advance of the Terran Dominion, until the galaxy remembered humanity's wrath for generations to come.